Hey, yo, welcome. Hit 'em.
3, 2, 1. We're back. The boys are back in town. Episode 54.
54.
54.
Is that Urlacher's number?
It's Bobby Wagner's number. Get it
I
straight.
think pretty sure it's Lakers.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be holding on to Bobby Wagner after getting trucked by old
You know what?
Baker last weekend.
It's all right.
Yeah,
You win
he did.
some, you win some, you
Truck
lose
stick.
some. It's all right. He's off his footing. It wasn't like it was like meant the whole. It wasn't like Oklahoma drill. So good. There's the football for the day, but it is divisional round, and we are all against the Rams.
No.
Yes. Go whoever you play.
Philly.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Saquon.
It's supposed to be cold, snowy.
Oh, is it in Philly?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It'll be
Love it.
rough.
Love it. It's good. So how's life? Adam's back. He's here.
Finally.
Get all those packages shipped from Christmas.
Yeah, here he let me leave. He let me have my life
undid
back.
the chain.
Did they let you leave or did you walk out?
Yeah. I said I had enough. Dude, I'm out.
You said the trucks are loaded. I'm gone.
Yeah.
I like it. That's good.
OPD for life.
You down with OPD?
OPD, yeah, you know me.
That's good. That's nice. It's we'll come up with our theme song soon. We'll get a new intro to the podcast. It's gonna be Vince. It's good. No, I think heading into the new year, we keep getting closer and closer to the first big thing for us. But I think for listeners, like it's important to have those dates on the calendar. Like we have that date for March.
Yep.
So then in January, February, that date's coming. And so that helps keep you on track because it's not just I can slack a little bit because I don't have anything till July. I think it's good to have those quarterly things that you're training for or whatever, or a goal. Because even if it's just within yourself, like, hey, I've got to weigh this by March 1st.
Well, and if you're setting a year-end goal of, I want to lose 50 pounds.
Right.
Like, instead of making it 50 pounds for the whole year, do 5 pounds a month or something like that. It's where it's a little more attainable, so you celebrate that little win there, and then you get the next one, and the next one. And then, again, like we talked about, you're winning that month. Then you've won the quarter, and then eventually you win the year.
Yeah. Well, and I think, too, like, it's otherwise you fall into the thing, like going back to when I was real heavy and would try to be like, I'm going to get this under together. Like, I'm going to lose, 50, 60 pounds this year. It was like, oh, well, then it would hit, like, September.
Right.
You'd be like, I've gained 5. It's like, I've got to really get on it. And then you just never hit your goal.
Yeah.
So, I think when you push things off for a year or you have this goal at the end of the year, and I think that's part of the New Year's resolution thing, going back to that. Like, there's no quarter mark. There's no progress report. You're just like, well, I set this goal and it's 365 days from now, so I'll check in on it with 80 days left and try to, and that's just setting yourself up for failure. So I think it's just a constant quest for like progress, and that's kind of where that goes.
And it sets you up for failure because when you get to the halfway mark, and if you're not halfway to your goal, then your mindset just goes, oh, well, screw it. Like, I'm not even close, so why continue for the other half of the year? I'm just going to – I'll start again next year and try this again.
Yeah, well, I think it can be anything. Like, doing in a lot of financial advising stuff when I first was in college, like, as an intern, like, you had to make 100 calls a day to get your quota, right? Like, you had sales goals. Well, then if I waited till the end of the month to start making my calls – to get 3,000 calls in, then it was like, well, this is going to be a really long day, and by the time I get to midnight, no one's answering.
Yeah.
So you got to have those daily markers of, and I think that comes back to the book with the 12 disciplines. It's not, you can't establish those disciplines at the end of the year and say, you can't start December 1st and be like, got them, December 31st. It's got to be this constant, like, okay, I'm doing this today, because if I do this today, it's going to turn into something tomorrow. Same kind of with like those calls and in sales, which was brutal, but it was ingrained that that's just what you do. You make the calls and you set the meetings, but without the calls, there's no meetings. So I think those little like daily things that we talk about in non-negotiables, if you look around you in the world, success, whatever that looks like, there's going to be a method. There's a game plan to it. There's habits that are created in order to get to success.
Yeah.
The habits don't create it, but the habits, take you there. I think typically when you see someone succeed, you don't look back and say, well, it was all these little things. There's usually one or two big. You're like, well, if they, it was because this break happened, or they got lucky here, or this deal was made. And I was like, well, that deal might have been made, but how many calls went into finding that person?
Well, they had to be present at that point for that, because that break could have happened with or without them.
Right.
It could have been, they just happened to be there at the right time. People say, oh, he was just lucky. Well, maybe, but he did the work doing those little calls and just happened to be there at the right time for that. Because if it wouldn't have been you that called, it could have been somebody else that called and got that break.
Right. Well, and I think, too, going back to, why we're here in fatherhood, like it's true of parenting. Like I can tell a kid something, like I'll use my kids, for example, like they're little, but then I work a lot with teens. Like, how many times do teens get told things over and over in their life, and it never sticks? But at some point, the opportunity comes where they're ready to receive it, and they're gonna hear it. And it may be saying to Asher now, for me, who's 4, like when he says I can't do something, I'm saying, don't say can't, like try. Like you could try and then I'll help. That doesn't stick with a 4-year-old. But when he's 12, he's heard it, maybe that's the time that I tell him that it sticks. So I've got to be consistent with my language, because at some point he's going to start to recognize it. And it may be an opportunity for him to finally, like, it clicks. Yeah. And so I think we just got to continue to be consistent. It's good. How's Adam's family is falling apart with the sickness?
Uh-oh.
He's Rob Zombie. He's down with the sickness.
Oh,
that's Disturbed. Sorry,
That's Disturbed,
that's
yeah.
on me. I got ahead of my brain was going faster than my mouth.
Is it Nora? The norovirus?
Is that what it is?
I don't know.
You think?
It's the flu.
Name it. Call it out by name.
Yeah. It's no, I mean it was really just a 18-hour stint of just throwing up, and yeah, I mean it was great. I mean as far as
lost 10 pounds, I can see my abs again. I'm good.
yeah, no, and it was Aria. It was just crazy how fast it hit her, and it's hard to believe, like when you can take moments like those, and you can actually have a meaningful conversation with a 9-year-old, because we were home on the day that she'd missed school. I was staying with her, and you could tell she was sick because her personality was completely changed. So she's super cuddly, and more so like even with me, because I mean she is probably more of a daddy's girl than anything else. But like because she asked her mom, Kelsey, who she wanted to stay with her, and she wanted me to stay with her.
Nice.
which is a nice little soft spot in Dad's heart to hear things like that. But so she was just kind of laying on my lap, and I was just kind of playing with her hair and rubbing her back and stuff. And I asked her how she was feeling, and she could just see in her eyes, like she's just like, I just don't feel very good. Well, and the whole entire time that we're sitting there kind of having a conversation, I just explained to her, because she was worried about basketball. She was worried about Pearson crossing the street by himself, because they cross the street whenever I pick him up from school. She gets a little anxious at 9. And I said, Aria, at this point, like, he'll be fine. Either your mom and I will get him. But the point of it was that whenever she was so genuinely concerned, like there's just a mother instinct inside of her that I really truly feel that, like, I don't know if it's from our home life or what she's been a witness to, but like her caring and her thoughtfulness, I mean, I just don't know if you're programmed that way or if it's stuff that she's witnessed to. And just to hear her have a conversation about the things that was going on in that little brain of hers, like there was just some genuine love and thought throughout even through her sickness. She was worried about other people or other things that were like her team and those kind of things. So it was just, I don't know, that's where my brain went whenever her and I have that conversation about just where she was at, even though she felt like total dog doo-doo.
Yeah,
She was just thinking about her brother and thinking about her team.
That's good. Well, it's got to be learned somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's good. I like it. Has sickness avoided you, Vince?
Kinda. I mean, Kelsey and I both battled. Mine was all just in my sinuses for like a week, and just a heavy rotation of Dayquil and NyQuil, and
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hit us the first of the year. Asher, then Addie, then Ramey, and somehow I avoided it, so that was good. But they just
You'll be the one that's sick going to the Arnold.
I won't be. I won't be sick.
Hope
going to the
not,
Arnold.
man.
I'll be.
Not a redliner. Can't have the guy who's always bouncing around
Hey,
being
now.
sick.
He'll be ODing on vitamin C, right?
Yeah,
The week before.
Yeah, vitamin C, and the C's for caffeine. I'll be like, that's my vitamin C.
Yeah.
Caffeine, baby. Yeah, that's good. But no, I think, you know, Josh talked about in his sermon at the first of the year about celebrating wins. And so, you know, we've talked about the book a lot, but for you guys, what has it been like now having it and now beginning to do the steps of like releasing it? And we just shipped out, you know, a bunch of copies today and just got done packing those this morning. Celebrating those wins, you know, there's still a lot of room for growth. There's still a lot of room for, you know, to get better, to build on it. But before we just go to the next thing, you know, I think it's important to take a moment and say, hey, we did accomplish something. So how is that? What have your guys' thoughts been? Because my favorite thing about this podcast, outside of like encouraging me each week and holding me accountable to be a better dad and a better husband and, you know, and take care of myself, is like the growth you guys have had, and hoping that, you know, the listeners take that growth too. So what's it been like for you with the win here?
We talked about it a little bit. It's just surreal. Like I said, we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and we've had these meetings about it, and for it finally to like, you know, like even when you and I were talking about placing the order and we were doing the editing process and all of that, and then to finally like have the copy in your hand. And that's what I was telling Curtis and Chuck in a group message the other day. Like, from a kid that never read, like
Amen, brother.
even in school,
Same
like
thing.
just skim the cliff notes, get what I could out of it, to reading every day, and then to have your name on the cover of a book that you had a hand in writing. It's just, it's wild to think about. Like, I got goosebumps just thinking about it. It's just, and now to be able to go here in 6 weeks to go to the Arnold, to put this out for thousands and thousands of people, and for them to read our words. I mean, it's just, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'd have to say and this is probably more for me a little bit, I've never been more proud of me.
It's good.
As someone
good.
who wasn't the best student.
What?
Yeah, believe it or not, guys.
Preach.
For all you people out there watching.
You were a really
that,
darn good quarterback.
I wasn't a very good student. School was a party for me. It was a social function for me to go and see people. So for me to be able to,
Wait, it's so funny because out of the three of us,
Yeah, who's social?
yeah, you were the Out of the, not saying you're antisocial, but out of the three of us,
I burned myself out.
Yeah, there you go. He's over
Definitely
it.
burned myself
Oh
out.
no, the problem is he's not in school anymore. So he doesn't have his party.
Yeah. No, I definitely burned myself out. I've had my fair share of people. No, I mean, I still enjoy being around a bunch of people, but man, to see me then and to see me now is definitely almost a 180 as far as being just as social as I once was, which is probably good for me to be more tame at my age than I was when back in my 20s and late teens and stuff. But to reflect on even just what I just said about even when I was younger to now, and you articulate the words that we've all have written, it's a testament to how far I've come and where I was at even 5 years ago as a person, as a husband and as a dad, and that's glory to God for one. my spiritual walk began 5 years ago, and all that has led to this moment. And I still feel like, even though this book will get passed around to people and been read, these are our thoughts, and I think it's truly important for people to understand that where we've came from before and where we're going after, this book will hopefully, like you said, inspire the next generation of dads, or the next generation of soon-to-be dads that can hopefully grasp onto the words that we've written and realize that, hey man, these guys have been through something that I've been through, and they were able to do this. So guess what? Maybe I can do something like this as well.
Yeah.
Like, give someone a chance for have a purpose further than where they're at. If they're feeling like they're in a spot where they're lolling, or they've hit a wall and they don't know how to get past something, maybe there's inspiration in this book that they can.
Well, I was telling him about it the other day. Like, when I got the book the other night, and I'm flipping through it, and he went about a God moment, like flipping through it and just stopped, and it happened to be on my chapter of self-control. So I read through the events that happened that night, and I was just like, this is where I was 4.5 years ago, the worst day of my life, and here I am reading about it. So it was just like, just a subtle reminder, like, you're good. Like, I got you. And it like almost brought tears to my eyes as I read back through it, because, like, Chuck and Curtis and I were talking, like, our past is our past for a reason. Use it as a reference point, but never look back at it too long. Right. But man, reading that, it was wild.
Well, I think it's a testament to, or a great point for listeners to understand. So like you guys, similar timelines here. Like Adam, 5 years ago, when Kelsey, your wife, and your kids are going to church, and you're at home, and you decide in that moment, I'm going to just listen to the sermon online, even though I'm against all that. Like, I don't want to do any of this. Like, my marriage is falling apart. Like, I'm not present. Like, all these things are happening. And you do that. Like, God knew what was in store if you just were obedient and walked alongside him. And not saying it's not financial blessings, it's not tons of material stuff, but just look at the fruit that your life has bared and how you've changed. And God knew that in 5 years, if he continues to walk with me, he's going to be so uncomfortable, because he's going to be doing things that he's been called to do. And now you're getting ready to go to, to train with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. You're with us, like you're active in the church, like you're leading men within there. And then Vince, like, when that accident happened, like, God knew, like, if he continues to go back to this lifestyle, this is what it'll be. This is the picture.
The crossroad.
Yeah, this is the picture of what your life will be if you continue to do this. And you had a choice, and you chose to grow from it and not turn back. And now you're, haven't had a drink since that night, and now you're doing things that, like, you never would have thought you were doing. So I think that's the beauty in, faith. In my chapter in the book talks a little bit about that. Like, faith isn't, how do I want to portray this? It's trusting that God has a purpose for your life, and that it's not about all the generosity or the things that you're trying to get from God. It's about, oh man, I feel so much more at peace, and I feel like I have a purpose when I'm doing what God's called me to do, versus trying to do it on my own. And so, if you're on that fence of like if you just give God a year to just trust him and be obedient and just see what happens. Because at the end of the year, you may be somewhere completely different, but I've never seen someone follow God with all their heart, soul, and mind, and in that be like, I'm not, like, they don't find purpose. And I think purpose is the biggest thing. And that purpose is bigger than just an occupation or a vocation. It's, you begin to see your purpose as why you're a husband, why you're a father, why you're leading other people, why you're placed in a certain spot. And so I think that's the biggest testament to you two is just, man, 5 years ago, if you would have seen a picture of where you're at today, you would have been like, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Knowing, the old, if I knew then what I know now.
Right. And so I think that's the other part of this is for the listeners, it's not just about us talking to you, but like you need to go and share the things that you're doing with other people, within your circles, to show, if you're doing these habits and you're living this lifestyle and you're trying to be present, like talk about that, not in a boastful way, but like in an encouraging way. Hey, this is how my life's changed since I've started to do this stuff. Mm-hmm. And here's some practical tips for you, because you influence the people around you. It's not the podcast or the book that has influence. It's what you do with the things in it that influence those around you. You can read it, put it on the shelf, and never change. But if you begin to change, then it has an impact on not only yourself, your family, the people you're around. And so I think that's the biggest thing, because that's been the even bigger testament to your life, is forget your change.
Right.
Think about your families and your your parents, those things. And just how now your kids will grow up differently than the way that you were living had you continued to raise them in that lifestyle is the cool thing.
Well, and part of this, when the book came out and I was reading it, there was a moment in time where, as I'm just kind of reading through all of our chapters, it dawned on me a little bit that, my mom obviously isn't here to be able to like witness the whole, the release of the book and stuff. So I kind of stopped and reflected a lot of just how proud that she would be of me, and how far I have come in my growth as a man, and then as a leader of our family and all that kind of stuff. And so like it was an emotional moment for me, because like obviously I would love to have shared that with her, but I know like in spirit that she's watching over me and all of us, and just she is proud. And I think so whenever like I poured my heart out in this book, a lot of that was because of all the stuff that I dealt with through her passing, and then our marriage, my wife and I's marriage, almost on the bitter end of a divorce. And then just like thinking to myself, like, where would our family be had these certain things not happened for me? And like you said, with God's grace and mercy over me and my spirit inside of me, like something pushed me and led me to a different path, that crossroad. And like I ultimately took his path and not my own, because I've taken my own for so long, and it was not working out. And for our listeners, even for some of the people that we know whose lives have changed, and it's not because of the book, it's because they made an ultimate choice. They just heard some words that were encouraging enough to know, again, hey, if these guys are able to have these dark moments and they're able to find light in something and be able to push themselves past that darkness into a light that has led them to this particular part of their stage of season of their life, why can't I? Don't let it be a scare that gets you to a point where you're so far behind it's hard to find yourself turning the page and going towards, because it does make it harder, because there's people that we know who had some health scares. Now granted, they were able to bounce back and they've really changed their lives completely, which is awesome, because that's ultimately what we want. But like, I guess my point is, my mom being gone, my dad's obviously getting up there in the age, like our time is limited, regardless of how old we can be. Like your dad in the van, like there's just so many things in our lives that your uncle, like all these things that have happened in our lives. Like, don't let that be in vain. Let that be a lesson of learned of, okay, I need to get living, because there's just going to be times in my lives where they're going to need me, and I want to be able to be there for them, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that I've got to take care of myself first before I can take care of them.
It's good. And you said in there, too, like, talking about the darkness, like, I have a song that was really influential for me, like, right in the beginning of college and leaving high school, and it was a Christian rock band, Remedy Drive, but their song was "Daylight is Coming," and the song goes, daylight's coming to break the dark, to break, and what that just said is like, you guys were in darkness, like we've all had moments of being in darkness, and the thing is like, you either stay in that darkness and you try to hide in it, but either way, daylight's coming, either to reveal everything that was done in the darkness, or you can view it from like the grace side, that if I turn from this darkness and I wait for dawn and I wait for daylight, that this doesn't stay. Like, daylight is coming. So either I can be trying to stay in the darkness and keep trying to find dark spots and try to find where the light's not touching, or I can just go out in the open and be like, I'm waiting for daylight because I'm done with trying to hide and do all these things. And I think that's a choice you got to make.
Yeah.
Are you going to try to stay in the darkness and try to hide and do these things and try to, make excuses or justify your behavior? But someday your kids are grown and have left the house, and you're old and your wife's sitting next to you and the kids are gone and daylight starts to creep through and you're like, wow, darkness is getting really hard to find, and what did I leave in those times when I was trying to hide? So I think that's a good picture of like where we're at. Like, I want to bring light and encouragement to those around me and not try to just say the things and go hide and do my own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, like, looking back on everything, I'm sure with like your situation, I know in mine, like, there was hints. Like, it was there.
I was being told a lot. I totally ignored it. And
we just ignored it. And eventually, those nudges from God, hey, to eventually it's a slap in the face. Like, hey, I'm trying to get your attention here. I'm trying to show you the daylight, and you are just closing your eyes and ignoring everything. So now I'm really going to smack you and open your eyes, and you're going to see it. And that's when all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, and I think you still had a choice.
You did?
You got smacked upside the head, and you could have said, wow, my life is falling apart, and the only thing I can go to now is I'm just going to do this. I'm going to double down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to double down on this lifestyle, and my kid's going to hate me, and, I upset, and the only way that I can get through this, suffering and pain that I'm experiencing is to just try to suppress it instead of deal with it. And that is a
no-win situation.
It is a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
Yep.
And so, I think if you address things head on, whatever it is, whatever you don't like, and we talk about that in the book, in some questions, but whatever things in your life that you want to change, you have to address them. You can't, if it's not dealt with, it's allowed, right?
Well, the first step of any rehab of sorts is acknowledging that you have a problem.
Right.
I mean, you have to acknowledge that, yes, whether it's drugs, alcohol, infidelity, anything, you have to,
social media,
food,
acknowledge
that, yes, there's my problem. And then you go through and continue to work on yourself that way.
Well, we were in, what a horrible time to not remember the passage. But I think it was in Romans. But it was talking about that sin wants to dominate your life, but we are supposed to dominate sin. And it was like, oh, wow. Because, we talk a lot, even in, the Christian faith, we need to, deny the temptations of sin and not give in to sin. And it's always this, defensive, I need to defend myself against it. I can't sin today. I need to watch myself. I don't want to fall into temptation. I was like, no, we're missing a point. We're not just supposed to defend it. We should dominate it. Mm-hmm. We should be in control of knowing our triggers, knowing our things that come up, and being like, okay, I know that this is that, and I'm gonna push it away, and I'm gonna dominate because I know what it is that is enticing to me, or that's gonna pull me away from my family, or pull me away from God. And then it's not just a defensive. It's I'm offensively looking for areas to grow and get better so that I don't fall into these temptations. Because, I think, what's the quote about a lackadaisical man is thrown, it's easier, or gosh darn it, what is it? Ian shared it. Shout out Ian. It was a lazy man is the devil's canvas. It's easy for the devil to tempt an apathetic guy that's just laying on the couch. But if you're active and doing things, it's a lot harder to go and, pull them away from something that they're doing. So if you're doing good things and you're actively doing and an idle mind is, that's what it is. An idle mind, is dangerous. An idle mind is easily tempted, but if we're constantly working, so it's good.
And that's why it's super important to just always be training. And that doesn't mean physically, that also means spiritually, emotionally. If you're constantly putting in work towards something, that idle mind, it allows that idle mind to stay subsided, and it continues to allow you to grow on the other side of that. So anytime you get a challenge or a trial, you'll know how to attack it. You'll know how to be on the offense instead of on the defense.
It's good.
I don't know if you would ever have an idle mind the way yours works.
Well, that's dangerous in its own sense. Yeah. Yeah, you guys, it's a real problem sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
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 You get on one sometimes, but it's fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. To be a spectator, and you can just see the gears turning sometimes.
Yeah, Adam and I were talking last night. We were talking about college, and he was like, yeah, you're one of those guys that I probably would have thought was pretty fun, and then at some point I would have been like, it's time for me to leave. He's getting... I was like,
it's about to happen.
I was like, yeah, there were a couple moments. But yeah, so it's a blessing and a curse. So you got to know how, like anything,
channel it.
Like anything, you got to know how to hone it, or at least tame it a little bit, or try to put it in a cage. So,
you know, tomorrow at church, his mom's going to come up to us and just be like, or whenever after this airs, she's going to be like, oh yeah, trust me. That mind of his is like...
Well,
try living for 23 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a story time for the listeners.
Secret time.
So, my mind, I would like to think it's always with good intention. That may not be the case. But it started at a young age. So it's not like I trained it to be this way. I was probably just a little bit older than Asher. And my bedroom in my childhood home was upstairs, and it was an old house built in like the 1800s.
Are you mopping the floor right now?
Oh, I'm about to.
Okay.
And I had a wood floor. It was above the kitchen. My mom was downstairs, and I was supposed to be upstairs, playing, sorting through football cards, whatever I was doing. And I thought it'd be really helpful if I cleaned the floor for my mom. Well, I got some buckets and went. All right, so we had a little technical difficulty, so we'll cut it back. But anyway, I was going to go mop the floors. That'd be a good thing. Help my mom clean the house. So I went and got some buckets, and I started dumping it on the floor and using a towel. And I used way too much water. And then my mom's at the kitchen, and the ceiling starts leaking.
Oh, my goodness.
Drip, drip,
man.
drip. She comes running upstairs, and she's like, what is going on? I'm like, this is crazy. And then I got in trouble. But that's kind of how my mind works. Good intentions.
Oh, yeah.
Just terrible execution. Just terrible execution.
Well, I guess that's where we come in with the execution side.
Yeah, you guys help tell me, like, I'm ready to be like, guys, we need to go clean the floors, and I'm filling buckets, and you're like, hey,
let's get
this
the
is
tools
not the way to
first.
do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. So
I've got one rein, you've got the other. We
Yeah.
just pull. Hold on.
yeah, this darn bit in my mouth, getting yanked back by Adam and Vince. Yeah. So
Seattle sleuth over here, just trying to win the Triple Crown. We're like, hold on.
Yeah. Triple Crown will run one race.
Yeah,
exactly.
Burnt out. Man, he's got a huge lead, and he fell down halfway through the track.
Hit him.
Man, we went over our time. Well, hold on one second. We're gonna fix this. We got popped by our garage band. That means we're rolling nice and long today. It tried to cut us out with the hit 'em. No, we're not done
garage
yet.
band.
We're not going anywhere. We're not leaving. That's how we rock. But that was a good point to kind of
Shut her down.
did kind of wrap it up for us.
Yeah.
Keeps us on our. You gotta have. This is good. You gotta have guardrails in place.
Yeah.
When you're going over, and you're going too long, you have these guardrails, and that's what that does for us.
But you don't want to go guardrail to guardrail, which is kind of again
bang
back
up
to
the
you.
car.
This is what you do. You're guardrail to guardrail. Adam and I try to keep you right
You
there
know
in the
what?
middle. Just hover nice and easy and safe.
Guys, this didn't need
We'll get
to
you a
be,
Tesla.
This is Colton. This is now going to be like the roast of Colton episode here at the
That's
end.
fine.
It's fine. I'm confident in who I am. I've dealt with this for 30 years. It's not.
If it wasn't for you, brother, we wouldn't be doing this.
It's not going to.
That's
It's
right.
not going to change anything. But yeah, who knows what next week will bring? Got
It's
some
5 a.m.,
I got
man.
some ideas brewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just the cow pulling the trailer, and we're just
No, like this is a throwback for the dads. You guys remember Wild Thornberries?
Yeah.
The show?
Oh, no. No.
We're a little older than you, so.
No.
No, well, Wild Thornberrys was this show about this girl and her dad, and them would like go. They lived out in like the safari, and she had a little brother that was like raised out there because he didn't ever live like the normal life. So he like wore a loincloth and like couldn't speak English, and he was like.
So
Bounce off the
to relate it to us, you'd be like Animal from the Muppet Babies.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
That's more our.
Yeah, it's more our time,
Wow.
more our genre of time.
All right, so now we got every generation of dads. You got Donnie from the Wild Thornberrys or Animal from the Muppet Babies. And both don't sound great, so thanks, guys.
Hey, but Animal was a drummer, so I mean that was cool.
You're a rock star.
Yeah, well,
Drummers are usually
that's
rock star.
awesome. So, my goodness. All right, well, hey, couple things. Go order the book. Go order the bundle.
Yep.
The bundle's out. You can get the book, the shirt, the dad's journal, the bracelet, the whole pack, the OPD starter pack. Go spread the word. Go rep. Go rep, read, and wear everything you got. There you go. Then if you're local, if you're in the area, January 25th, this Saturday, we'll be at Milk and Honey in Mattoon, Illinois from 10 to noon. You can get your bundles and books there. We'll be signing. Love to meet you guys, say hey, and
Come share
a cup of coffee. So that is.
Oh man, you know how much coffee he's gonna go through in 2 hours.
This is not. This is a family.
This
podcast.
is a family podcast.
This
Yeah.
is not a comedy podcast.
We're just gonna hook you like
I'm
an
gonna have
IV
to change-
up to you and
Yeah,
just.
well, I'm gonna have to change the topic. It's no longer parenting and health. It's comedy, apparently. Like, oh look, guys, next week we've got Tom Segura on. Yeah, that was nice. I'm glad we made this switch. So,
Now come check us out.
Yep.
yeah, we'll be on tour. Apparently, it's just
Come check us out.
apparently
Technically, we are going to be on tour because
Yeah.
we're going to hit a couple more spots after.
That is true. We will be on tour, but it won't be me sitting in a throne just waiting, letting you guys just roast me.
roast.
So it's good. Next week, it'll be the roast of Adam.
Yeah, that's fine. Bring it.
Yeah, we got nothing to say. So, all right, that is episode 54.
Peace.
Hey, yo, welcome. Hit 'em.